My name is Olivia. I'm 29 years old, and when I walked back into my parents' house after a long business trip, the first thing I noticed was the silence. No familiar gleam in the garage. My chest tightened. My Corvette wasn't there. I dropped my suitcase by the door and demanded, "Where's my car?" My mother's lips curled into a smile that felt more like a taunt. "Thanks to your car, your brother's having the time of his life." Her words hit harder than any punch. I stood frozen, staring at her, trying to process what I'd just heard. My car, the one I worked for, sacrificed for, the one that carried pieces of my past and every ounce of my pride, gone. I let out a laugh, low and sharp, not because anything was funny, but because it was the only thing keeping me from exploding. That laugh must have unsettled her, because her smile dropped. "What's so funny?" she snapped, her voice rising, the confidence slipping. What she didn't know was that the ground beneath her feet was already crumbling. I kept my eyes on her, and for a moment the room fell into a tense stillness. My father rustled his paper, avoiding my gaze, as if he already knew that their secret wasn't going to stay hidden for long. My mother shifted her stance, waiting for me to break down, to shout or beg. But I didn't. Because the truth they had no idea was about to hit them, was going to change everything. Have you ever had your own family cross the line, taking something that was yours and acting like it belonged to them? If you've gone through something like that, I want to hear your story in the comments. And make sure to hit subscribe. I'll be sharing more of my personal experiences here every single day, and you don't want to miss how this one unfolds. Back in that room, though, my silence cut deeper than any argument. My mother slammed a plate onto the counter, her patience cracking. I said, "What's so funny?" she barked. I leaned back slightly, the corner of my mouth lifting, my voice calm but steady. "You'll find out soon enough." And in that moment, their faces told me everything. They knew I wasn't bluffing. What they didn't know? Their worst regret was only just beginning. I was 7 the first time I felt an engine rumble through my bones. My grandfather had pulled up in his old pickup, the kind of machine that smelled of oil and history, and waved me inside. Every Saturday morning after that, we had a ritual. While other kids sat glued to cartoons, I was at his garage, watching his hands bring lifeless cars back to glory. He'd lift the hood, hand me a wrench far too big for my little fingers, and say, "Cars aren't just metal, they've got character. You treat them right, they'll speak to you." I believed him. The way his eyes lit up when an engine turned over for the first time after weeks of work told me there was magic in it. And then came the day he pulled back a dusty tarp and revealed her, the car that would forever burn itself into my memory. A 1969 Corvette Stingray in rally red. Even under a film of dust, its curves seemed alive. The polished chrome, the deep growl of the engine when he started it, my whole world shifted. I whispered a promise to myself then. One day, I'll have one of my own. That car wasn't just beautiful, it was freedom. It was proof that dreams were worth holding on to, no matter how long they took. At home, though, my passion was treated like a problem. My mother frowned at the grease under my fingernails. "Why can't you act like a girl?" she'd sigh. My father would shake his head, unimpressed. "Why not act proper like your brother?" He'd say. All these was because I was what society describes as a tomboy. My brother never had to work for attention. He was the golden child, the polite, well-dressed boy who wanted the right things. When he wanted piano lessons, they paid for a private tutor. When he mentioned an interest in travel, they booked him a summer in Europe. Me? When I asked for shop classes, my mother said they couldn't afford pointless hobbies. When I begged to attend a local car show, she brushed me off with, "That's for men, not for you." It wasn't his fault. My brother didn't ask for the favoritism, but it was impossible to ignore. He got designer clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. He got a new car for graduation. I got a lecture about acting proper like a lady first, before expecting anything from them. Every comparison carved deeper into me the need to build a life on my own terms. Still, every Saturday with my grandfather reminded me that my dream was real, even if no one else respected it. That garage became my sanctuary. Each bolt I turned was a declaration. I will prove them wrong. I will have that Stingray. And when I do, no one will ever be able to take that away from me. Or at least, that's what I thought back then. If my grandfather's garage was where I found joy, my parents' house was where I learned the sting of favoritism. My brother was the sun they revolved around, and I was the shadow in the corner, expected to applaud his every success. When he wanted soccer cleats, they bought him the most expensive pair on the market. When I asked for a set of basic tools so I could practice fixing up an old lawnmower, I was told money was tight. Strangely, money was never tight when it came to him. He got dance lessons, piano lessons, tutors, brand new gadgets the moment they hit the shelves. Every birthday was a spectacle. Balloons, parties, shiny gifts stacked on the table. My birthdays? A card, maybe a cake if my mother remembered to stop at the bakery on her way home. By the time I hit high school, the contrast was impossible to ignore. He pulled into the parking lot in a brand new car for his 16th birthday, a shiny bow on the hood and our parents cheering like they'd just sent him to the moon. I stood there with a smile plastered on my face, but inside, it felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I got a bus pass and a speech about how responsibility builds character. It wasn't just the material things, though. It was the tone in their voices. The softness reserved for him, the sharpness saved for me. If he forgot his chores, it was because he was busy with more important things. If I slipped up once, I got a lecture about how I'd never amount to anything if I didn't try harder. I learned quickly that waiting for their approval was a waste of time. So I started working, babysitting, cutting grass, stocking shelves at the local store. Every dollar I earned was mine, and unlike the gifts that fell into my brother's lap, my money meant something. I saved it, guarded it, and treated it like a lifeline. Meanwhile, he coasted. He knew that no matter what, someone would bail him out. Failed a class? They'd hire a private tutor. Wanted to skip college for a gap-year trip around Europe? They funded the whole adventure without hesitation. And when I finally got accepted into a good college, juggling part-time jobs to cover what scholarships didn't, my mother barely looked up from her phone when I shared the news. Yet when my brother landed a mediocre internship through one of my dad's golf buddies, they threw a family dinner to celebrate him like he'd won a Nobel Prize. I told myself their favoritism didn't matter. I told myself I'd make it on my own, that one day I'd have something no one could deny. Something they couldn't twist or belittle. What I didn't know back then was that even when you think you've secured your dream, the people closest to you can be the very ones who try to rip it away. The moment I left for college, I knew I was on my own. My parents made that clear when they offered no financial support beyond a lecture about responsibility. So, I rolled up my sleeves and worked. Classes filled my days, and shifts filled my nights. I stocked shelves, cleaned offices, waited tables, anything that brought in a paycheck. My friends would invite me to parties, spring break trips, weekends away. I said no, every time. While they were picnicking on the beach, I was serving drinks behind a bar. While they bought designer sneakers, I patched mine together with glue, because every spare dollar had a purpose. There were moments I wanted to quit, nights when exhaustion pressed down so hard I couldn't feel my own hands. But then I'd think about that rally red Corvette in my grandfather's garage, the way he had looked at me with pride when he showed it to me. That car wasn't just a dream, it was a promise I had made to myself as a child. By the time I graduated, I carried not only a degree in finance, but also a work ethic burned into my bones. I landed a demanding job at an investment firm. The hours were brutal, 70-hour weeks, nights lit by the glow of spreadsheets, weekends swallowed whole by deadlines. But I didn't complain. Every overtime shift, every penny that hit my account, brought me closer to the goal I had carried since I was 7. For years I lived like a ghost. No vacations, no splurges, no distractions. My colleagues bragged about their new apartments or weekend getaways to Europe. I packed my lunch, wore the same 2 suits on rotation, and quietly funneled my money into savings. Then, one night, scrolling through an online forum for collectors, I saw it. A 1969 Corvette Stingray, Rally Red. Not just any listing, the same model, the same color, the same heartbeat as my grandfather's. The price was staggering, $85,000. Every cent I had. My fingers trembled as I typed out the offer. A week later, it was mine. The first time I slid into that driver's seat, my chest tightened. The leather creaked under my weight, the polished steering wheel cool against my palms. When I turned the key, the roar of the engine filled the air, and for a moment, I swore I felt my grandfather sitting beside me. I whispered, "We did it," and tears blurred my vision as I pulled onto the open road. That car wasn't just metal and paint. It was every hour I'd worked, every sacrifice I'd made, every insult I'd swallowed. It was proof that I wasn't the forgotten one in the family. Proof that I could build something lasting out of nothing. It wasn't just my car, it was my dignity on four wheels. Not long after I bought the Stingray, work threw me the kind of opportunity that could change a career overnight. One morning, my manager called me into her office, her tone unusually serious. She told me a major client overseas wanted someone to spearhead a deal worth millions, and my name had come up at the top of the list. I tried to keep my expression professional, but inside, I was on fire. This was the kind of assignment people twice my age begged for. A few weeks abroad, the chance to prove myself, and if all went well, a promotion waiting on the other side. But as soon as the excitement settled, another thought took over. The Corvette. 3 weeks away. The neighborhood where I lived had already seen a string of car break-ins. I couldn't stand the thought of leaving her in a public garage, exposed. That's when the idea came. My parents lived in a quieter area, with a big garage that sat mostly empty. Despite our strained history, I still believed they could at least provide a safe place for the car. So, I drove it out there the evening before my flight. My dad's eyes lit up as I pulled into the driveway, his hand grazing the hood. "She's still a beauty," he said, almost wistfully. For a second, I thought maybe he understood how much it meant to me. My mom, on the other hand, barely hid her indifference. 3 weeks? She frowned when I explained. "That's a long time. You really trust us with this?" I gave them instructions anyway. Start the engine once a week, don't drive it, use the fitted cover I'd brought along. My dad nodded earnestly, but I couldn't ignore the way my mom's eyes slid toward my brother when I said, "No one else touches it." At dinner, the tension sharpened. My brother, always the center of attention, was sulking. Between bites of food, he sighed dramatically. "All my friends are booking this luxury cruise. Everyone's going, except me. Guess I'll be the loser stuck at home." Mom reached across the table, patting his hand as though he'd just confessed some great tragedy. "We'll figure something out," she promised, her tone warm in a way I rarely heard directed at me. My dad stayed quiet, which said enough. I forced a smile, but unease settled in my gut. I knew that look on my brother's face. He wasn't just jealous, he was already scheming. While I was away, their messages became oddly cryptic. "We have a big surprise waiting when you get back," my mom texted one afternoon. I brushed it off as a welcome home dinner. But some part of me, the part that had grown up watching them give him everything, felt a knot of worry tighten in my chest. I should have listened to it. The flight home felt endless, but the thought of sliding back into the driver's seat of my Stingray kept me buzzing with energy, despite the jet lag. I could already hear the roar of the engine in my head, feel the leather under my hands. It wasn't just about driving. It was about reconnecting with the one thing in my life that was mine, truly mine. The taxi pulled into my parents' driveway, and the excitement in my chest twisted instantly into dread. The garage door was wide open, and there was no Corvette. Just my dad's sedan and my mom's SUV, sitting there like they belonged. My car's space was nothing but emptiness. Dragging my suitcase behind me, I stepped inside, my voice sharper than I intended. "Where's my car?" My mom turned from the counter with a smile that chilled me. "Thanks to your car, your brother's having the time of his life." For a moment, the words didn't even make sense. My dad dropped his newspaper to his lap, eyes darting away like he wanted no part in the conversation. My mom, though, looked almost triumphant, as if she had finally solved a problem. I laughed once, a hollow sound that wasn't amusement but disbelief. "You sold it?" She didn't flinch. "Your brother needed a break. He's been under so much stress at work. All his friends were going on a Mediterranean cruise, and he was going to be left behind. Do you know how humiliating that would have been for him?" I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to tell me it was a joke. Instead, she picked up her phone, swiped, and shoved the screen toward me. There he was, my brother, standing on the deck of a ship with a drink in his hand, sunglasses perched on his nose, grinning without a care in the world. The room tilted. My hand started to shake. That car was 5 years of sacrifice. Every skipped meal out, every sleepless night at the office. And they had tossed it aside for a vacation. "You can buy another one," my mom said, her tone flat, dismissive. "You make good money. Family matters more than things." My chest burned. Family matters? Since when? Did family matter when you ignored me growing up? When I was the one working 3 jobs while he got handouts? That car wasn't just a thing. It was my promise to myself, my connection to Grandpa. My voice cracked, but I kept going. "You had no right." My dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his voice weak. "Try to understand. Your brother needed this. He's not as strong as you." I turned to him, anger spilling past the edges of my restraint. "And I don't matter, right? My dreams, my sacrifices, they're just fuel for his fun." My mom's expression hardened. "Stop being dramatic. You've always been so materialistic. He's your brother. You should be glad he's finally happy." Her words cut deeper than she knew. It wasn't just the car they had taken, it was every shred of trust I had left in them. I stood there in the living room, my mom glaring at me as if I was the one who'd done something wrong, my dad sinking lower in his recliner, and it all came crashing back. Every slight, every quiet injustice that had stacked up since I was a kid. The birthdays with a card and a store-bought cake while my brother blew out candles over a mountain of gifts. The afternoons I begged for tools to keep fixing up old machines while he was handed private lessons for whatever hobby caught his eye that month. The day he got a brand new car for graduation, while I stood smiling with my bus pass in hand. And now, years later, after every sacrifice I'd made, after 70-hour work weeks, after saving every penny, after bleeding myself dry to buy something that carried not just value but meaning, they had stolen it. For him. Again. My mom crossed her arms. "You'll survive. You always do. But your brother? He's different. He's sensitive. He needed this more than you ever needed that car." I laughed, bitter and sharp. "Sensitive? You mean spoiled. And you mean I don't matter, because that's what you've been saying my whole life." My dad finally spoke, his tone pleading. "We didn't have much time. He was desperate to go with his friends, and the opportunity came up suddenly. We had to move quickly before you came back." I froze. "How much?" He hesitated, then mumbled, 50,000. The number ripped through me like a blade. My chest went tight, my hands curling into fists. 50? That car was worth 85 minimum. Do you have any idea what you even sold? "The buyer said it was a fair price," my dad muttered, as if that excused it. My voice rose, sharp enough to make both of them flinch. "You didn't even check. You didn't care what it was worth because it wasn't about the car. It was about him. About giving him what he wanted, like always." My mom's chin lifted, defiant. "You're overreacting. It's just a car. You'll buy another one. But your brother? He'll remember this for the rest of his life. Family comes first." Something inside me broke then. Not the way they wanted, not in defeat. The heartbreak cooled into something sharper. My eyes stung, but I refused to let tears fall. "It's not just a car," I said quietly, steady now. "It was mine. Legally mine. And you sold it without my consent. Do you know what that's called?" My dad swallowed hard, finally meeting my eyes. "It's theft," I said. Plain and simple. The silence that followed was heavier than any shouting match could have been. For the first time I saw it dawn on them. This wasn't just family drama. This was criminal. And the consequences were only just beginning. I don't know what came over me in that moment, but instead of screaming, I laughed. A low, steady laugh that filled the room in a way silence never could. My mother's eyes narrowed, her bravado slipping. "What's so funny?" she demanded, her voice sharp, but now there was a trace of unease. I wiped the corner of my eye and shook my head. "You really think you've ruined me, don't you?" Her frown deepened. "We didn't ruin anything. We gave your brother the chance of a lifetime." I leaned against the doorframe, the weight of my exhaustion gone, replaced by something colder. "No, Mom, you didn't sell my car." That made her blink. Even my father finally looked up, confused. "We saw you park it in our garage," he said, his tone defensive. "We handled the sale ourselves." I smirked. "Exactly. You sold what you thought was mine." Just then a knock came at the front door. My dad shuffled to open it, and there stood James, my boyfriend. He walked in, his eyes flicking from me to my parents, a hard edge in his jaw. "Where's the car?" he asked, though we both already knew the answer. My mother waved her hand, impatient. "You must be the one with that replica. Don't interfere." James chuckled once, then his expression hardened. "Replica? You might want to sit down for this." I crossed my arms. The day after I left for my business trip, James came here and swapped his replica Corvette for mine. They look identical to the untrained eye. Same rally red paint, same Stingray badge, same curves. The difference is that his was built in 2004 and is worth maybe $30,000. Mine's the authentic 69, valued at nearly triple that. The blood drained from both of their faces at once. "You're lying," Mom whispered, though her voice cracked. James pulled out his phone and scrolled until he found a picture. He turned the screen toward them. My car, parked safely in his climate-controlled garage, untouched. "This is the real one. Has been with me the entire 3 weeks." My dad stumbled back into his chair, pale. "Oh my God." I tilted my head. "So, what you actually sold was James's property, without his permission. Which makes this more than betrayal. It makes it fraud and theft." James's voice was firm, cutting through their panic. "In Illinois, theft over $20,000 is a Class 1 felony. Add falsified paperwork to complete the sale? That's prison time, up to 15 years. My mom's hand flew to her mouth, her bravado gone. She shook her head violently, as though denial would erase what they'd done. We didn't know." James didn't flinch. Ignorance doesn't matter in court. I looked at them both, their fear finally outweighing their arrogance, and for the first time in years I felt no weight on my chest. They had spent my entire life choosing him over me. And now, their devotion to him might be the very thing that destroyed them. The silence after James's words was deafening. My dad's hands trembled as he gripped the arms of his chair, while my mom sat frozen, her face drained of every ounce of superiority she'd worn moments earlier. I straightened, my voice calm in a way that unsettled even me. "Do you understand what you've actually done? You didn't just betray me, you committed theft. You took property that wasn't yours to sell. You forged my name on documents to make it look legitimate. That's fraud. And when you accepted money electronically from the buyer, that added wire fraud to the list." Their eyes widened with each word. For once, they had no interruptions, no dismissive excuses. James leaned forward, his tone sharp and professional, almost like he was delivering a verdict. "Theft over $20,000 in Illinois? That's a Class 1 felony. 15 years minimum. Fraud charges stacked on top could double that. And don't think the buyer won't come after you once he realizes the title is worthless." My mom broke first. She buried her face in her hands, sobbing so loudly it felt rehearsed, the kind of crying that once made me fold, rush in, and comfort her. But this time, I stayed still. My dad's voice cracked as he whispered, "Please. We didn't know. We thought it was your car. We thought we were helping." "Helping?" I snapped, my calm finally giving way to a sharp edge. "You sold my dream, my sacrifice, everything I worked for, all so he could sip cocktails on a cruise ship." My mom's sobs grew louder, desperate. "We'll fix it. We'll make it right. Just tell us what to do. Please, don't let them put us in jail." I stared at them both, and for the first time, the balance of power had shifted. All those years of lectures, dismissals, being told I was too strong to need anything, they were the weak ones now, looking at me like I held their fate in my hands. And maybe I did. My heart twisted, because they were still my parents. Part of me wanted to scream that justice demanded they pay, that prison was no less than what they deserved. But another part of me, the part still carrying the little kid who had wanted nothing more than their approval, hesitated. James glanced at me, waiting, his expression unreadable. He didn't push, didn't pressure me. He just let me sit in the silence, weighing the truth I couldn't escape. This wasn't just family betrayal anymore. This was a crime. And whether I chose mercy or justice, nothing would ever be the same again. My phone buzzed in my pocket, slicing through the silence like a blade. The screen lit up with an unknown number. Normally, I would have let it go to voicemail, but something in my gut told me to answer. "Hello?" I said, my voice tighter than I intended. "Is this the owner of the 1969 Corvette Stingray?" a man's voice asked, professional, but edged with irritation. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "This is Peter Donovan. I purchased the vehicle from your parents. There seems to be a problem with the title transfer. The paperwork isn't lining up, and the state rejected the application. I need an explanation. My eyes flicked to my parents, who instantly went pale. My mom's hands trembled against her lap, while my dad's knuckles whitened on the arms of his chair. They looked like kids caught with their hands in the cookie jar. I forced my tone steady. I see. And what exactly is the issue? The documents your parents provided don't hold up. Signatures look off, and there are inconsistencies with the VIN. If this isn't resolved quickly, I'll have no choice but to involve the authorities. The room felt charged, every second dragging out the tension. I could have ended it right then. Told him the truth, and let my parents face the storm they had created. Part of me wanted to. They had earned it, but another part of me saw a bigger picture. One that stretched further than a single phone call. Exposing them immediately would end the game too quickly. No, this needed to play out. They needed to sit in their own fear, to realize exactly what betrayal cost. I swallowed back the anger boiling in my chest and answered calmly, "Mr. Donovan, there's clearly been a misunderstanding. I'll need some time to sort this out. Can I call you back within the hour?" There was a pause on the other end, then a clipped, "Fine, but don't make me wait, I expect answers." The line went dead. When I lowered the phone, both my parents were staring at me with wide, desperate eyes. My mother broke the silence first, her voice a shaky whisper. "What are you going to do?" I let the question hang in the air, deliberately slow, letting them squirm under the weight of it. My dad's throat bobbed as he tried to form words, but nothing came out. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms, my voice even. "What I'm going to do," I said, "is make sure this plays out on my terms, not yours." Their faces drained further, and for the first time in my life, I saw fear, not anger, not disappointment, not arrogance, real fear, in their eyes, and it was only the beginning. The next morning, I arranged to meet Peter Donovan in person. He was a serious man, the type who dealt in contracts and numbers, not excuses. We sat across from each other in a small cafe, his briefcase on the table between us. My parents didn't dare come, they knew their presence would only make things worse. "Let's get straight to it," he said, flipping open a folder filled with the forged paperwork. "These documents are worthless. I don't know what game your parents thought they were playing, but if I don't get clarity, my lawyer will." I met his eyes without flinching. "Mr. Donovan, the truth is simple. That car was never theirs to sell. It wasn't even mine. What they sold you was a replica belonging to someone else. The real Stingray is safe, untouched." For a moment, he studied me, weighing my words. Then he closed the folder with a snap. "So, I've been defrauded." "Yes," I said evenly, "and you have every right to press charges. But know this, if you go after them, you'll be chasing people who sold something they never owned. You'll never see a dime back." His jaw tightened, but then he nodded slowly. "I'll pursue them directly, but if you're telling me the truth about the real car, then I suppose our business is finished." When I walked out of that cafe, a strange calm settled over me. The truth was out. Their secret wasn't just between us anymore. Later that week, my brother returned from his cruise, sunburnt and grinning, bragging about champagne parties and endless buffets. He strolled into my parents' kitchen, tossing his designer sunglasses on the table like a trophy. "That was the best trip of my life," he smirked. "You guys really came through for me." My mom tried to smile, but her eyes were swollen from days of crying. My dad sat stiffly, saying nothing. I leaned against the doorway, arms folded. "Glad you enjoyed yourself, because while you were busy living it up, the people who sacrificed for you are about to lose everything." He blinked, confused. "What are you talking about?" I stepped closer, my voice steady. "The car they sold? It wasn't mine, it belonged to James. And now they're facing fraud charges that could ruin them." His cocky grin faltered. "You're lying." "Check the news," I said. "The buyer already filed a complaint. It won't be long before lawyers start knocking on this door." The color drained from his face. He turned to our parents, searching for reassurance, but they couldn't even meet his gaze. For the first time he looked small, stripped of the shield of favoritism he'd always hidden behind. And me? I walked out of that house knowing my car was safe in James's garage, gleaming like a symbol of every hour I had fought to claim my own life. They had tried to rob me of my dignity, but all they managed to do was expose themselves. As the door shut behind me, I realized my revenge wasn't loud or messy. It was simple, letting them choke on the consequences of the life they had built around lies and favoritism. Walking away from that house, I should have felt empty. After all, they were still my parents, still my blood. But instead, I felt lighter. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying the weight of trying to earn their approval or hold on to the scraps of their affection. I had finally let go. Betrayal stings no matter where it comes from, but when it's from family, it cuts deeper than anything else. Strangers can take your money, colleagues can take your credit, but when the people who raised you decide your dreams are expendable, that wound never really heals. They told me over and over that my car was just a thing. To them, maybe it was. But to me, it was 5 years of 70-hour weeks, of missed vacations, of patching together my life dollar by dollar. It was Saturday mornings in my grandfather's garage, his hand guiding mine, teaching me to respect the hum of an engine the way other families pass down recipes or traditions. That Corvette was a piece of me. My sacrifice, my memory, my dignity on 4 wheels. And they sold it like it was nothing. But here's the truth. They didn't really sell my car. What they sold was my trust. And that, they can never buy back. It's strange, isn't it? Sometimes the revenge isn't in shouting or fighting back. Sometimes it's just letting people live with what they've done. My parents now carry the weight of knowing their golden child's cruise came at the cost of their reputation, their security, and possibly their freedom. My brother, for the first time, is learning what it feels like when no one swoops in to protect him from the consequences of his choices. As for me, my Stingray is safe, gleaming, and waiting for me. Every time I see it, I'm reminded not only of the man who taught me what it meant to love something enough to fight for it, but also of the day I finally chose myself over their favoritism. So if you've ever been betrayed by your own family, if you've ever felt like the people who should have stood beside you were the very ones cutting you down, you're not alone. Share your story in the comments below. I want to hear it. And if you believe respect should never depend on favoritism, if you believe that dignity is worth more than family politics, like this video and subscribe to Active Revenge. I'll be sharing more of my stories every week. And trust me, you won't want to miss them. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, steady, and undeniable. And that's exactly what they'll live with for the rest of their lives.